You're at a party, standing next to a stranger. Your brain instantly freezes and blurts out the classic line, "How's it going?" The other person, "Fine." Boom. That's it. Dead silence rolls in. You pull out your phone and start scrolling without even thinking, praying someone will save you from this awkward black hole. Trust me, I get it. If you're shy, small talk feels exactly like a survival game where everyone knows the rules, except you. Most of us believe that to be a great talker, you have to be born charming or be some kind of super extrovert. But listen up, that's completely wrong. Here's the truth. Top communicators aren't smarter or more interesting than you. They just understand a few hidden rules about how conversations actually work. Rules most of us were never taught. That's why Dex is here to crack the code on mastering small talk and hand you a real, practical tool. Even if you're the shyest person in the room, these tricks will turn any boring conversation into a magnet that pulls people in. Ready? Let's go. Before I hand you the tricks, we need to bust the biggest myth about communication out there. Most people think this: I'm bad at small talk because my life is boring, I don't have anything interesting to say. Wrong. Small talk was never a test of who's got the wilder story. What actually sends your conversations into a dead end is a psychology term called cognitive load. Picture this. When you toss out a question so generic and dull like, "How's your day going?" or "What's new with you?" you think you're being friendly. But from a neuroscience standpoint, you just threw a pressure bomb at the other person. In a split second, their brain has to run at full speed. What should I even talk about? Is my work stuff too boring? Would telling them about that fight with my boss sound too negative? Does this person actually want to hear this, or are they just asking to be polite? Without even meaning to, you're pushing them onto a stage and forcing them to direct an interesting show right on the spot. This creates something experts call performance anxiety. And what's the brain's survival instinct when it's hit with that kind of pressure? It picks the path that burns the least energy. It automatically freezes and throws back a safe, short, harmless answer like, "Nothing much, same old," or "fine." See, you're not failing because you're bad at this. You're failing because you're treating people like a Google search bar, typing in some generic keyword and hoping it spits out a brilliant essay. People with magnetic communication skills never do that. They don't ask others to perform. Instead, they act as the ones who unlock the door. How do they do it? With 4 incredibly subtle but completely natural cognitive manipulation tactics. Trick 1, break down their guard with a compliment. Let's look at this through the lens of human evolution. Thousands of years ago, if you were out gathering food and ran into a stranger from another tribe, the amygdala in your brain would instantly sound the alarm. Is this person friend or foe? Is he going to steal my food? And our modern brains still run that same risk scanning system today at networking events, parties, or coffee shops. When you approach someone new, their instinct is to put up an invisible wall. They're not sure if you're about to sell them insurance, ask to borrow money, or just bother them. Behavioral science shows that a genuine compliment works like a signal, telling the other person's subconscious, "I'm not here to compete with you, I actually appreciate you." The moment they receive that compliment, their brain releases a small amount of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which makes them instantly drop their guard and warm up to you. But hold on, don't go running off to hand out random compliments. There's a really thin line between being smooth and coming across as a creepy flatterer. To stay completely safe and get the best results, just focus on these 3 categories. 1. Compliment a specific style choice. Don't say, "You're so pretty." That sounds really generic and sometimes comes across as unnecessarily suggestive. Instead say, "Sorry to interrupt for a second, but your glasses have serious style. They look exactly like something an architect would wear." You're complimenting their taste, something they actually put thought and effort into choosing, not something they were just born with. 2. Compliment their energy or vibe. I've been noticing this whole time, you've got such a chill vibe. Being around someone with calm energy like yours at this loud event feels really nice. 3. Compliment their expertise or work, if you already know a bit about them. I read through your team's report the other day, and the way you organized the data was really clean. You'd have to be a great systems thinker to pull that off so smoothly. Here's the key rule. Once you give the compliment, move on to a new topic right away. Don't just stand there staring, waiting for them to compliment you back. You're not flirting, you're just laying down some grease so the rest of the conversation rolls along more smoothly. Trick 2. Switch topics using associative thinking. There's a trap that most shy people fall into when they're trying to keep a conversation going. I call it job interview mode. It goes like this. You ask a question, they answer. You nod, then rack your brain trying to come up with a new, unrelated question. Something like, "What do you do for work?" "I work in finance." "Oh, that must keep you busy." "It's all right." Sounds exhausting, right? Are you interrogating them? Or what? The conversation just keeps breaking apart into meaningless little pieces. Master communicators never let a conversation move in a straight line. They use nonlinear thinking, or in other words, associative thinking. This technique works by grabbing onto any keyword from the other person's answer and using it as a springboard to branch off into a completely different topic. With this golden formula, hearing you say that reminds me of, let's see how this technique actually plays out in real life. You. "What did you do this weekend?" Them. "Nothing too special. Saturday night I went to see The Odyssey with some friends. Mostly because Tom Holland's in it, and I swear I see that guy's face everywhere lately." If you think in a straight line, you might ask, was the movie good? That's not wrong. But it's pretty flat. Because if they just say, yeah, it was good, you're right back in that same dead end from before. But if you use associative thinking, that one sentence just handed you a whole bunch of hooks. The Odyssey, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, Christopher Nolan, going to the movies with friends. You could pivot right away. Tom Holland really does have a weird career. In my head, he's still just Spider-Man, so seeing him show up in a Nolan epic feels like Peter Parker accidentally wandered into Greek mythology. Is there an actor where no matter what role they play, you can only ever see them as that one old character? Boom. You just went from a super basic question like, what'd you do this weekend, to a whole conversation about actors, iconic roles, movies, and even how our brains lock a person into one familiar image. When you start running out of things to say, don't panic and force yourself to think up a whole new question. Just look back at what the other person said and ask yourself, is there anything in here that reminds me of a movie, a trend, a story, or an experience of my own? Grab it, pivot, then share. You'll realize a conversation almost never actually runs out of topics. You just haven't learned yet how to spot the doors that are already sitting right there in what the other person just said. Trick 3. Peel the onion with the question why. In the last trick, you learned how to expand a conversation horizontally. But to create a real connection, the kind that makes the other person think, wow, this person really gets me, you need to know how to dig deeper vertically. In communication science, there's a concept called social penetration theory, often compared to peeling the layers of an onion. The outermost layer is surface-level information, the what and the where. What do you do for work? Where do you live? What school did you go to? Most small talk conversations die right at this outer layer. It's too safe, too cookie cutter, and it doesn't spark any real emotion. Smart people don't stop there. They keep a sharp knife called why, ready to slice straight into the core of the onion. When you ask why, you're no longer asking for facts, you're asking the other person to share their core values, their motivations, and their beliefs. And here's the psychological truth. People can be too lazy to ramble on about small details, but they're absolutely hooked on talking about what drives them in life and the decisions that shaped who they are. Instead of this sleepy script, what do you do for work? I'm an accountant. Oh, dealing with numbers all day must be exhausting. Upgrade it with why. What do you do for work? I'm an accountant. Wow, working with numbers takes serious discipline. What made you decide to go down this path in the first place? Did you love math as a kid, or was there some story behind it? See the difference? The second question shows real appreciation. It gives the other person a chance to tell the story of their life. Even if they answer with something like, oh, my parents pretty much forced me into it, I wasn't really passionate about it. That's great. You just struck gold. You can keep branching off. So if it wasn't for family pressure, what was your real dream back then? Once you get someone talking about their passions or dreams, you're not doing small talk anymore. You're having a real connection, a deep talk. And trust me, they'll walk away thinking you're one of the most interesting people they've ever met, even though they were the one doing most of the talking this whole time. Trick 4. Ask fun questions to loosen things up. All the tricks above are great, but what if you're unlucky enough to run into someone who's going through a phase where they're just completely over life? You ask about their job, they sigh, it's rough. You ask about their hobbies, they shake their head, I've been too busy lately, haven't done anything. Every logical angle you try just slams into a concrete wall of exhaustion. At this point, if you keep chasing them with logic and reality, you'll sink right along with them. The solution is to hack their brain by pulling them out of that gray reality. How? Set up a hypothetical frame. When reality feels too heavy, pull them into a game of imagination. Hypothetical questions are completely harmless, there's no right or wrong answer, but they have the power to release dopamine and spark creativity right on the spot. Sounds like work is draining you dry. Let's imagine this. If you woke up tomorrow morning, checked your bank account, and found out you'd won the lottery and never had to worry about money again, what would you do the very next day? Or how about this? If you had a magic wand and could erase just one law from the entire world, what would you get rid of? Trust me, these questions hit hard. They completely strip away the restrictions of the real world. The other person doesn't need to stay on guard or come up with some socially correct answer. They're allowed to be playful, allowed to show their real personality, even the slightly crazy parts. And the moment they laugh and jump into your hypothetical scenario with you, the awkwardness of small talk is officially dead. You're no longer two strangers struggling to find something to talk about. You're two teammates inside a movie scene you just created together. But hold on. Everything we've covered so far only makes up 50% of success. The other 50%, the part that decides whether they actually want to keep talking to you, comes down to how you listen. Let's level up with these two top-tier listening habits. Listening habit 1, positive reinforcement. Have you ever told a story you thought was pretty funny, only to have the other person listen with a face frozen like a wax statue? That feeling is like pouring a bucket of cold water on a fire. It kills the mood, it's embarrassing, and you tell yourself, forget it, I'll just keep my mouth shut from now on. Now flip the situation around. Who's the person you love talking to the most? Isn't it someone who's always smiling, nodding, and laughing easily at your jokes, even when they're not actually that great? Behavioral psychology explains this through a mechanism called positive reinforcement. When someone is talking, their subconscious is constantly scanning your face, looking for approval. When you smile or laugh naturally, you're continuously sending a signal. You're interesting. I'm enjoying this moment. You're safe here. People with natural charisma are never stingy with their smiles. They laugh easily. Please don't get this wrong. It doesn't mean you have to fake, laugh, cackle awkwardly, or force yourself to seem funny. It simply means lowering your own bar for what counts as amusing. Let yourself be entertained. When they slip up and say something a little off, give a light, friendly laugh. When they complain about the weather in a slightly dramatic tone, laugh along with them. When you become an easy audience, you turn the other person into a charming storyteller. And here's the ultimate psychological twist. People don't actually remember what you said. They only remember how amazing they felt while they were around you. When you laugh, you make them feel like they're amazing. And naturally, they'll get hooked on talking to you. Listening habit 2, the mirroring technique. This might be the most powerful listening technique I've ever come across. Used by Chris Voss himself, the FBI's former lead hostage negotiator. It sounds like a huge deal, but it's shockingly simple to actually do. One of the biggest obstacles shy people face when listening is that they panic and think, oh no, they're about to finish talking. What am I supposed to say back? What kind of cool advice am I supposed to give? Good news for you, you do not need to give any advice or deep insight at all. Your only job is to be a mirror. So how does the mirroring technique work? You just repeat the last 1 to 3 words, or the 3 most important words, from what the other person just said using a curious tone, letting your voice rise slightly at the end like a question. Here's an example. Them. Last year, I decided to quit my old job. The environment there was seriously toxic and it was wrecking my health. You, instead of trying to give advice or a long sympathetic response, wrecking your health? Them. Exactly. You wouldn't believe it. My old boss made us work overtime until 10 p.m. with no extra pay, and he'd even text us work on the weekends. You, work on the weekends? Them. Right. That's why I decided to just walk away and start my own studio. See how powerful that is? You barely have to add any new information to the conversation at all. Repeating those last few keywords works like a psychological anchor, triggering a kind of neural connection between the two of you. It sends a powerful message straight to the other person's subconscious. I'm listening to every single word you say. I understand your pain. Tell me more. It encourages the speaker to naturally dig deeper into their own story, takes the pressure off you to respond, and most importantly, it makes the other person feel like they're being listened to in the most genuine and complete way possible. And in a world where everyone's just waiting for their turn to jump in and talk about themselves, knowing how to mirror puts you in a completely different league as a communicator. After going through these 4 tricks for mastering conversation and these 2 listening habits, I hope you're now seeing small talk in a completely different light. It's not some natural-born talent. It's a set of skills you can learn, break down, and apply like a formula. But if I had to boil it all down to just one core idea for you to carry with you for the rest of your life, I want you to burn this line into your memory. Don't try to be an interesting person. Be a person who genuinely cares. When you stop forcing yourself to prove something, stop worrying about whether you look cool, and shift all your focus onto exploring how the other person sees the world, that's when the magic happens. Your shyness disappears, because at that point, you're no longer standing under the spotlight. You've smartly shined that light on them instead. Small talk isn't about filling silence. It's the necessary runway for finding people you actually click with. Use it like a filter, one that protects your energy from boring people and opens the door to relationships that are actually worth having. Out of every psychology hack and communication trick we covered today, which one made you think, wow, I need to try this tomorrow? Drop it in the comments and let Dex know. See you in the next video, and remember, stay calm, stay sharp, and always be in control of the game.